Hello, welcome back to Lady Lovestead Reads. My name is Jessica, and in this video I'll be sharing with you my reading goals for 2025 as well as my January 25 TBR. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not new here, welcome back. Great to see you all. I hope you're having a really good start to your year, a good wrap up to 2024. If you're new here, I typically read books that fall into one of two categories. On the one hand, I read dark and twisted, kind of depraved stories. On the other, I really like cozy, lighthearted, and whimsical stories. The books I talk about usually fall within one of those two categories, and because I do read some really dark stuff, please make sure to check your trigger warnings before you pick up any of the books that I talk about in my videos. I don't share trigger warnings because I think that they're spoilery sometimes, but I recommend using Storygraph if you want to learn about potential triggers in any of these books. Let's start with my goals for 2025. All of these goals will be focused on reading goals, and I have other goals for the year, but we're staying on topic here. I usually set my number of books to be read at 100. That is a realistic goal for me. I consistently meet that year over year, so this year I'm going to continue with that trend. My first goal is to read 100 books. My second goal is one that I attempted last year and failed at, and it was to read 10% of my owned TBR. I have beautiful bookshelves full of beautiful books, and I've only read, as of today, 41% of them. My goal ultimately is to get to 75% of my books read. I don't want to go higher than 75% because then I don't feel like I have a lot to look forward to. But 75% is kind of a sweet spot for me where I'll feel like, okay, I'm getting my money's worth, I'm reading the books I buy, but I still have something to look forward to because there are unread books on the shelf still. Now, as I said, I'm at about 41%. Last year, I started at 40%. And I ran into this issue where I would read books from my shelf, but then I kept buying them. And so they would cancel each other out in that percentages game. So I'm setting up some parameters this year to make actually moving the needle on the percentage a little bit easier. But ultimately, by the end of 2025, I would like to go from 41% to 51% of my owned books read. And that's specifically for my books in physical form. My third goal is to adjust my spending habits and my book buying habits. So this will actually help with goal number 2 because as I read from my shelves, I won't be buying books to cancel out that progress. 2024 was a difficult year for me financially. I had surgery, I had home repairs, car repairs, and vet bills, like all of those big money ticket items. They happened. So I'm trying to recover in 2025 and looking for ways to reduce spending. And so I'm adapting my book buying habits to be more economical. I'm not calling it a book buying ban because I'm not strictly banned from buying books, but I do have some rules I've set for myself around the habits I want to develop in purchasing books. And it will help me both monetarily and with my goal to get to 51% of my own shelves read. One of the ideas actually comes from Ollie at Criminolly, who is a booktuber, and his goal, or the idea, and he calls it like a challenge. And the challenge is called the Read From Your Shelves Challenge. And in that challenge, he does not buy any new books until he has read 100 of his books on his shelves. That number is not realistic for me, so I backed it down to 20. The rule is I can only buy one book after reading 20 books from my own shelves. The one exception to that is Oathbound by Tracy Deonn. So the third book in the Legendborn cycle is coming out in March, and I'm absolutely going to buy it. And I don't want it to count against me, so that is the one exception to this rule of one book for every 20 books read. I am setting up some parameters around what book I buy when I buy that book. And one of them is I want to hold off on buying a book until I'm ready to reread it, because I was trying to think about what's my purpose here in having all these books that I just keep on my shelves. My purpose isn't for them to just sit there and collect dust. I want to have books on my shelves that I actively reread. So I want to make sure I'm buying books when I'm ready to reread it. That is something I will consider when buying a book. The other thing I will consider is if my library is not able to provide that book, right? I am in a rural area, so it does happen, not super often, but it does happen where my library just does not have any access to the book that I want to read. The Bunnicula series is one example. My library just does not have any of the Bunnicula books. So if I can't find it in the library and they can't interlibrary loan a copy, then that would be a book I would consider purchasing. So those are the rules for my new book buying habits. 1 book after 20 books from my shelves read. You buy a book when you're ready to reread, or if you can't find it in the library. I'm saying you to me. I'm talking to myself. My 4th goal. This is a granny square. I am a baby crocheter. I'm a crochet baby. I do not have a lot of crochet experience. I'm not great at it, but it is something that I enjoy doing. I like to crochet while I listen to audiobooks. And I had the idea this year that it would be fun to crochet a granny square in the colors of the covers of the books that I read. I'm also turning 40 years old this year, and it would be such a neat little keepsake to have a blanket all in the colors of the covers of the books that I read in the year I turned 40. Like, I don't know. I think that's neat. I think it's fun. And so I'll get to try out different colors, and then I'll get to learn different patterns for squares, because this is just like the standard granny square. And it's for a blanket I'm making for a friend. Hopefully they don't just throw it away because it looks terrible. But yeah, it's just the regular pattern. It's the only one I know so far. So I can try out different patterns for the squares and different colors. And the blanket size that I am aiming for is about 96 squares. So, but one rule, it does need to be a book that I finish. I'm not going to crochet a cover for a book that I DNF. So it has to be a book that I finish. That's the only real rule about it. And I think I'll easily finish 96 books. I do count DNFs toward my year-end goal, and that's a conversation we can have some other time if you want. So I'm pretty sure I didn't have more than like 4 or 5 DNFs this year. So 96 should be an easy target to hit for finished books. Goal number 5 is really similar to number 2, only I'm focusing on my ebooks. I do own a lot of ebooks on my e-reader that I haven't read. So I went ahead and calculated the percent that I've read. I've only read 13% of my owned ebooks. This is not counting Kindle Unlimited. It's strictly the ones that I own forever on my e-reader. And so I want to increase that. I'm not going to expect myself to like super bump it up or anything like that, but I would like to increase the percentage of ebooks that I own read from 13 to 18%, so 5% by the end of the year. 10% for physical books, 5% for ebooks. I do subscribe to Kindle Unlimited, so goal number 6 is to make sure that at least 25% of what I read is from Kindle Unlimited. When I did the math to make the subscription cost worth it for me, or that is the number I need to hit, is 25% of what I read from Kindle Unlimited. And if you think about it, 25% is 1 in 4. That's doable. Goal number 7 is to continue what I'm doing this year, reading from marginalized voices. So I would like 50% of the authors that I read from be from some sort of a marginalized voice, whether it is a BIPOC author, an author with a disability, an author from the LGBTQIA2+ spirit community. And here in 2024, I think I'm just at maybe like a couple percentage points under 50%, but it's close enough that I feel like, okay, I'm at that goal. So I want to continue doing that in 2025 and continue supporting marginalized voices. And then my 8th and final goal is to reread a book every month. I was shocked and shooketh when I was looking through my numbers and I had only reread 2 books in 2024. I reread a book by Tess Gerritsen and I reread Orlando by Virginia Woolf, and that was it. And I would like to do more rereads, and as I reread, annotate and emboss them and really just re-experience a book that I loved. So that is something that I'm going to prioritize in 2025 by reading or rereading at least 1 book a month. Those are my goals for 2025, my overarching reading goals. If you want to share some of your goals that you have, please feel free to do so in the comments below. But next we're going to talk about reading plans for January 2025. I do have a Discord called the Lovestead, and it's sort of farm themed, I guess, farmhouse themed. And the channels are like rooms in the house. So there's a channel where we talk about food called The Kitchen. There's a garden space where we talk about gardening. There's a library space where we talk about books. And we do some fun things in the Discord. So we do buddy reads every month. We're going to start doing trilogy read-alongs. And so we're deciding which trilogies we want to read this year. We do reading sprints really regularly on Discord. I find sprints through YouTube, like a live YouTube, to be difficult for me. But I am able to do sprints through the Discord a lot easier and much more regularly. So I do a lot of sprints there for reading sprints, productivity sprints, and that kind of thing. And we do some goal support as well. And it just continues to be like a growing community, and the community shapes it. It's a fun group of people to be a part of, and it's free. So if you're looking for any kind of community here in 2025, you are welcome to be a part of the Lovestead community on Discord if that's something that you would like. The link to the Discord is in the description box down below. Reading plans. First of all, I was talking to my friend Jasper on Instagram about the Legendborn cycle, which this is the first book in the Legendborn cycle. We were talking about how Oathbound comes out in March, and I asked her if she wanted to reread these, and she said yes. So that kind of grew into what is now a read-along. So we're hosting a read-along of the Legendborn cycle. In January, we will be reading Legendborn. In February, we will be reading Bloodmarked. And in March, we'll read the new release, which is Oathbound. If you want to join the read-along, it's either on Instagram or my Discord. So we're going to have an Instagram private message discussion of it for folks who only want to be on Instagram. And then if you want to discuss it in a Discord setting, I've got a thread on my Discord to talk about it. Legendborn is a YA fantasy, dark academia, and it features Bree. Bree gets early admittance to a college or university in North Carolina. At the university, she discovers a secret society based around Arthurian legends. There's magic. She has powers. There are magical creatures. It's a fun time. I love these books so much. Probably in my top 5 YA fantasy series of all time. I'm so excited for the 3rd book to come out in March. This will also check off my reread for January because I've read this before and I loved it. And I'm so excited to reread it and annotate it and just be back in this world. So join if you would like. I would love to have you. This is a bigger book. It is 500 pages. So if that's something that you need to consider before deciding to join, do know that these are consistently 500 plus page books. 2 of my other friends here in the community are also doing read-alongs of other series that I really want to read. I will be sharing my Serious About Series or SAS list here coming up soon. But both of these series are on my SAS list. So, first is Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. My friend Mr. Francy at Mr. Francy and his Discord called the Sparkle Cafe are doing a year-long read-along of all of Brandon Sanderson's works, and they're starting with Elantris. I will not be able to keep up with the pace that they set because Sanderson's books are big. They are big, and I've got some big book plans here in the year, so I absolutely know I'm not going to be able to keep pace with the schedule that they set for the Cosmere, which is Brandon Sanderson's universe. But I am going to read Elantris with them in January, and I will at least do that. There is not a whole lot in the description of this book to tell you what it is about, but it is an adult high fantasy. It's often considered the first book you should read if you want to get into Brandon Sanderson's world, again called The Cosmere. It is also a longer book. It's 638 pages. Oh goodness. Next, my friend Amy at AmyHarboredinPages is doing a read-along of the Lord of the Rings series. I had mentioned, I want to say it was like my April vlog when I went to an indie bookstore and bought a copy of the Lord of the Rings bind-up, that I've been really wanting to reread the Lord of the Rings. I read them in high school, and I remember I liked the Fellowship of the Ring, but then I didn't like the other two, but I was in high school and I've matured quite a bit since then. So I would like to reread this because I did like the movies. Like, I do think I'm going to like them as an adult. And I want to start that actually with The Hobbit because I've never read The Hobbit. And so this is kind of a prequel, if you will, to the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Now, Amy is hosting a read-along of the trilogy, and they already started. Like, they read The Fellowship of the Ring in December. So I'm going to be woefully behind on that read-along as well. But I will at least participate as I can and when I can, and hopefully that's okay. But I will start with The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien in January. I think most people know like the premise of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, but if you don't, this is also adult high fantasy. We follow Bilbo Baggins as he lives in the little Hobbit Shire and the adventures that he has. I think Gollum is in this one. So the back it says, Bilbo Baggins visited various notable persons, conversed with the dragon Smaug the Magnificent, and was present rather unwillingly at the Battle of the Five Armies. This is all the more remarkable since he was a hobbit. Next is Darkly by Marisha Pessl. This was an anticipated release for me. It is the Lovestead buddy read in January. This is a YA dark academic thriller by one of my favorite authors of all time. I've read all of her other books and loved them. In this book, the main character, Dia, is selected to do an internship with a game designer. And apparently this game is kind of sinister. And she's there with other interns. They're all teenagers. And something's going on with this game. Like, think Jumanji. At least that is what I'm interpreting from the description of the book. I did actually get sent some Darkly merch from the publisher, Penguin Random House, but I will share that merch in my January vlog. And last in this video, I want to share with you my library haul for the month. If you have been with me for the past year, you know I'm going on a Cassandra Clareverse journey. And I'm using this interactive timeline that goes in chronological order, and it includes the short stories. Now, I was having some trouble deciding where I wanted to go from where I left off in December. So where I left off in December was I had finished the Infernal Devices trilogy, and I was torn between picking up one of the next steps in the chronological read or just going straight to the Mortal Instruments series. And I debated about it and I debated about it and I talked to people about it. And then I actually went to Cassandra Clare's website, and the website recommendation is chronological order for reading. So I'm going to stick with the chronological order. And in the month of January, because I'm reading a bunch of other big books, I am going to read the short stories that fall between Clockwork Princess and Chain of Gold, because Chain of Gold is huge. So the short stories come from the collections. So these are the two collections that my library had physically. Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy and the Bane Chronicles. They have a lot of different authors in them. And I did read a couple Bane Chronicles short stories before starting the Infernal Devices. I like some of these authors better than others. So I don't know where we're going to fall reading these stories. But the order of them is The Whitechapel Friend from Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy, Nothing But Shadows from this one. And then from one that my library didn't have physically, but I think they have a physical or an ebook version, is Ghost of the Shadow Market. I'm going to have to double check on that one. I might need to go to the library and check that one out again, or I just might skip that story. But from Ghost of the Shadow Market, the story that comes third in this little cycle is Every Exquisite Thing. And then the last story before getting to Chain of Gold is The Midnight Air from the Bane Chronicles. Those are my reading plans for January, as well as my goals for reading for 2025. Have you read any of these books? Are you going to join in the buddy read of the Legendborn cycle, Lord of the Rings, the Cosmere? Are you going to join the Darkly buddy read? Let me know down below. Tell me also what some of your reading goals are. Comment, get involved in the discussion so we can all go find your channel and subscribe and be friends, join the Discord, all that fun stuff. If you like the content that I'm producing, also make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, do all the things you're supposed to do. If you just want to leave me an emoji to let me know that you're here, go ahead and leave me any sort of celebration emoji as we celebrate the new year. And until next time, make sure that you continue to read good books, drink good coffee, take care of yourselves and each other. Bye!